Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone online who's joining as well. Today is our group learning program where I'm going to be sharing with you guys chapter 12 from our book. This chapter is titled Craving is the Problem. What is the solution? This is where I help remind students of the Four Noble Truths, helping them to understand the very first teaching of the Buddha. Because when we get into chapter 13, I'm going to teach you guys how to go in and surgically remove cravings, desires, attachments out of the mind, because you're going to learn about what craving, desire, attachment is and how it's causing the mind to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are being caused by what's going on in one's own mind, and this is why you can actually eliminate them. That's what the Buddha did, is figured out how to get to the point where you can eliminate these discontent feelings and experience complete peace and joy in the mind. This is called enlightenment, where the mind is now in that permanent mental state where you'll enjoy the rest of your life with the peace, the calmness, the serenity, and contentedness with joy. And there's a whole path of training that the Buddha taught that you need to learn and practice in order to be able to acquire this mental state. And as part of that practice is meditation. So we start each one of our classes with meditation to help you guys learn and practice meditation. So if you guys would like to join for meditation, the way that I start is with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And you guys are welcome to join in the chanting, because chanting will help ease your mind into the meditation and you'll actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. If you'd like to join in the chanting, there's laminated sheets over there on the cabinet that you're welcome to help yourself to. You'll see the chants there and you guys are welcome to chant along. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students commit the teachings to memory. It was a learning tool or a learning device to be able to remember the teachings, because everything he taught was oral, so they needed some way to be able to remember the teachings, and it was chanting that they used to be able to do that. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or anything like that. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they just used it purely to help them to remember the teachings, where today we use it in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So you're welcome to join along if you like as I'm doing the chanting. If you read the English translation of the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these chants himself. Because if someone went around and said, "Here, chant these chants for me, out of respect for me," this would be ego and arrogance and pride. And an individual who's gotten to enlightenment doesn't have that in their mind. They don't put themselves above others. They don't look down on people. And they also don't put themselves below others either. So the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, "Here, chant these things to me." But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might have a lot of appreciation and gratitude and respect for that person as well. So that's why I suspect that these came from his students either during his life or after his death. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be actually teaching you to meditate while we're actually meditating. I'm going to be guiding you and kind of instructing you in the meditation for a brief period of time, just kind of teaching you how to meditate. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anyone who's joining us online will just all be meditating together at the same time. Now, during that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds, because you're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. You live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing. If you have a craving for permanent silence during meditation, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed or agitated or something of this nature. So you'll probably hear a car go by or a bird chirping, maybe a dog barking, someone here might cough or sneeze or something like that. You're going to hear occasional sounds, but those sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away because they're impermanent. So if you're in meditation, understanding that the world is full of impermanence and that you're not going to experience permanent silence, you can rest at ease and be peaceful when you hear those sounds. So that's what I would suggest you do while you're meditating, so that you don't cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed as you might hear certain sounds. Then after the time of quietness where we're all meditating. Then we're going to come out of that with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand chapter 12, craving is the problem, what is the solution? In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And these 4 positions are things that you would need to learn as you're journeying on your path to enlightenment, because they're like tools that you kind of assemble a tool belt to be able to help you to meditate at different times, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. You're going to need different positions at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position, so I'll provide you guys some guidance on the seated position that will help you to find something that's more comfortable for you. Perhaps you can sit however you like, whether you're on the floor in a chair, or maybe if you're at home you're on a bench or a sofa in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to actually sit. So what I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or things for you to consider, but you sit however you like. Even if it's not something that I've taught, you can sit however you like. So if you're on the floor, you might be sitting with some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and could cause pain in the lower body. Sometimes people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it, but again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up, or just rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So these are all options for you. And it's the same thing for anybody sitting in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can also sit however you're comfortable. If you're in a chair or any of those other devices, sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting here in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with your sternum up and your shoulders back. It'll help keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Because if you're slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic, and it makes it difficult to breathe. Whereas if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So by having the upper body in the middle, not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So I'm going to ease us into meditation with the chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on to help you get more benefit out of the meditation. And then I'll come back in with the guidance to be able to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apiwateyami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body relaxed, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you'd like to just establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well developed, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanang Apiwa Theami Savakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sambuddho Sakato Rokavitu Anuttero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was sharing, today's our group learning program where each Sunday I come together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We use this book as our foundational text, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter, helping students to understand the path to enlightenment. This is a great place for people to really start in their journey to enlightenment because it helps you to develop an understanding of all the foundational teachings. Today we're in chapter 12, which is titled Craving is the Problem. What is the solution? What this chapter is all about is helping people to remember what I taught back in chapter 4, because the first several chapters of the book is kind of like the heart of the book, and now the book kind of pivots and it moves towards helping students to understand other aspects of the teachings of the Buddha. And on chapter 13, I'm going to be helping students to understand how to almost surgically go in and remove what's causing the mind to experience discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So here in chapter 12, what I do is I help students to remember what's called the Four Noble Truths, and helping them to be able to understand this particular teaching, which is the very first teaching of the path to enlightenment and what the Buddha taught as the very first teaching. So you're going to learn today in a way that you can independently verify what is the real problem in the mind. Why does it keep experiencing anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy? This is the very first teaching of the Buddha. You're going to learn about what's called the Four Noble Truths. In 4 simple statements, you'll be able to independently independently verify what's causing these feelings and how to actually eliminate them. Because what people tend to believe in the unenlightened state, due to the mind's lack of wisdom, is that it's other people who are causing you to be angry or sad or frustrated. But what you're going to be able to see today is how it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And this is why you can actually eliminate them, getting to enlightenment, where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. As I go, I'm going to pause a few times during the talk to be able to allow you guys to ask questions, to get clarification on things that you need help with. And as I pause, I have microphones here that you guys can use in order to be able to ask your questions. That way the people online will be able to hear your question. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you. So if you're interested in asking questions, if you could just come get a microphone, press the gray button, you're going to see the lights come on, and then you can hold this up to your chin and you can speak, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. And you can take these microphones back to your seat to ask your question, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with anybody around you. And then if you're not using the microphone, if you could turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers, that would be great. And then for anybody who's online, if you guys would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then ask any and all questions that you like that way. So when the Buddha was first teaching new students, he would start them with this teaching called the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing the discontent feelings so that you could actually eliminate them. If you were interested in eliminating your anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings, you would never be able to eliminate them if you didn't understand what was causing them. So the Buddha would teach his new students this very first teaching called the Four Noble Truths. And when he would teach students, he would help them to understand that in order for you to gain wisdom, to know his teachings and be able to experience the results, he would encourage you to listen with eager ears, that you actively listen to what it is that he has to teach you, so that way you can actually understand it and put it into practice and really actually gain the benefit. So as I teach today, if you would like to listen with eager ears, where you're actively listening and working to understand what it is that I'm sharing with you, this will actually produce the best results for you, where you'll be able to investigate his teachings and examine his teachings, because you're going to need to have a certain amount of intellectual learning. Then as you do that intellectual learning, you can reflect on his teachings to independently verify whether they're true or false. Then you can practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life, and this is where the real transformation of the mind is occurring. So I'm going to walk you through this process as I teach you the teachings of the Buddha, where you can learn, you can reflect, and then you'll understand how to practice, because that's where you'll actually experience the real results. And then as I mentioned, as I go, I'm going to pause and give you guys opportunities to ask questions, so that if there's any clarity that you need, you can ask those questions. In order to be able to teach you the Four Noble Truths, I need to first teach you something called the Three Universal Truths. These are like building blocks to be able to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. So I'm going to teach you guys these first. We call these the Three Universal Truths, and then there's the Four Noble Truths, because the Buddha knew that they were true. And I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But in order for you to benefit, you need to know that they're true. And that's why you're not interested in believing any of the teachings. There's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things and hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, growing, and developing in this life, getting to the ideal life now in this life. You're not believing his teachings. The Buddha didn't teach you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows certain rules and commandments, then the world will become a better place. He taught you the way the world is, because when you understand the way the world is, with that wisdom, you can navigate the world more peacefully and more joyfully. But when you don't understand the way the world is, you'll be stuck in a world that you don't understand, and then you'll have struggles and difficulties. That's what the anxiety and the stress and the sadness and the guilt and the shame and the fear and all those feelings are. That's the mind struggling, because it lives in a world that it doesn't understand. So what you're going to learn here with the Three Universal Truths and the Four Noble Truths is the way the world is, not the way the world should be. And you're not going to be learning rules and commandments from the Buddha. He didn't teach those kinds of things. And he also didn't teach rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. He's helping you to be able to get to the point where you have wisdom about the world around you. There's certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of it or not. And it's when you learn these natural laws and you cultivate wisdom about them that your mind is now awakening. When we talk about awakening, it means to cultivate wisdom. And there's certain natural laws that are affecting you, whether you're aware of these natural laws or not. Just like the natural law of gravity that we all struggled with when we were growing up as a child, we lacked wisdom of that natural law. We really struggled and had difficulties because we didn't understand the world that we lived in. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, and we started bleeding, and we broke our toys, and we were crying and crying and crying because we didn't understand this world. And this natural law of gravity was affecting us whether we were aware of it or not. And then slowly but surely, as we aged, we gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity. And that's when we started experiencing better results, because we started making better decisions because of the wisdom of this natural law. Now we're at the point where we can climb ladders, we can ride bicycles, we can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because we fully awoke to this natural law of gravity. We fully understand it. We never believed in it. We can actually see the truth for ourselves. It's right there, right? We never believed in the natural law of gravity. We saw the truth for ourselves with our own eyes. So there's these other natural laws that the Buddha taught that may be able to help you to be able to understand the world around you. And you're not interested in believing in them, but instead learning, growing, and developing to cultivate wisdom. And now, just like the natural law of gravity, where you maybe walk on the street, looking at the street, maybe you tie your shoes a bit tighter, you stopped being so giddy and bouncing around as a kid, you make wiser decisions because of your wisdom of the natural law of gravity. When you understand the natural laws that the Buddha taught, you'll make wiser decisions about how you interact in the world. And now you'll experience improved results in those decisions that you make. So the Buddha is going to explain to you the way the world is, not the way the world should be. Because when you understand the way the world is, just like with the natural law of gravity, you'll make wiser decisions and it'll produce more wholesome results for you. So this first universal truth is called the universal truth of impermanence. This is where the Buddha is helping you to be able to understand the world around you is constantly changing. This is a fundamental teaching that you need to be able to understand in order to understand the Four Noble Truths and have the breakthrough to being able to understand why you experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. What the Buddha teaches you is that there's things called conditioned objects. These conditioned objects, they arise, they change, and they fade away. This is impermanence. Essentially, they are temporary. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. This is very fundamental to be able to understand that you're in a world that is impermanent, where things are constantly changing. Okay, so this is a teaching that the Buddha teaches about conditioned objects, that they arise, change, and fade away. Then there's something called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. They are unconditioned. There's no condition that needs to be met in order for this thing to actually exist, right? So enlightenment is that way. Now, when you get to the enlightened mental state, it doesn't arise, it doesn't change, and it doesn't fade away. It's just either on or it can be off. But by the time you get to enlightenment, it's permanent. It's a permanent mental state that's always there. And the natural laws of existence, they are permanent as well. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. They are permanent. This is why the teachings of the Buddha are just as applicable today as they were 2,500 years ago, because they don't change. His teachings are timeless. Now, people's memories and the books and the way people understand his teachings, that's all changed because that's impermanent, but the natural laws themselves, they don't change. So the Buddha is teaching about conditioned objects. They arise, change, and fade away. They are impermanent or temporary. And there's unconditioned objects that don't arise, don't change, and they don't fade away. And I gave you two of those. Enlightenment is that way, and the natural laws of existence are that way. So that's the intellectual learning. That's the part where we're understanding the teachings intellectually. But now you don't believe what it is that I shared, because as I shared, nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. If these are universal truths, you should be able to independently verify what I'm sharing with you, right? So that's where you move to the second part, where you start reflecting on the teachings based on your own direct experience in your day-to-day life. And you ask yourself, is this true or is this false, based on the things that you know about the world? So what I suggest you do is you look around the world and try to determine if you can find something that you can see, hear, smell, taste, something that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind that are permanent. Because if you can find something that's permanent, you've disproven this and it's not a universal truth. So what I suggest you do is start with something that you're familiar with and ask yourself, is it permanent or is it impermanent? Like, for example, this human body. You know this human body well. You've been inhabiting it this entire life. Ask yourself, is it permanent, meaning it's been exactly the same your entire life and it hasn't changed? Or is this physical body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's constantly changing, right? We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get teeth that grow in, they fall out, and then new teeth come in. Our hair grows, and then we lose it. The hair turns gray. The complexion of our skin gets darker or lighter. We get wrinkles and pimples and moles. This is all change that is happening with the physical body. The body is constantly changing. It is impermanent. Okay? What about your relationships? If your relationships are permanent, that means you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If your relationships are impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your entire life. So what would you say? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? What's that? They're impermanent, right? They're constantly changing. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's very impermanent, right? For some of us, right? Go up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, 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 right? So your bank account is constantly changing. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent. We see that already this morning, right? It was raining and now all of a sudden it's sunny outside, right? Some places it might sleet or snow or hurricane or typhoon or any of these number of things. This is impermanence, right? Look at the class here. We had a certain number of people when we started out and now more people have come, right? That's impermanence. That's constant change. So we could go on and on and on with this. And if that's what you need to do to be able to independently verify this, that it's the truth, then you should do that. Go out into the world and see if you can find something that's permanent. You can look around the world. If you're walking down the street and you see the sidewalk and there's a crack in the sidewalk, that's impermanence, right? If you look at a fence and you see the paint is fading, then that's impermanence. That one time this fence was painted and now it's fading away, right? The wood planks on the floor of the temple, some of them are longer or shorter, some of them are darker or lighter or different textures, right? This is all impermanence. There's constant change in the world around you. And you need to be able to deeply soak this into the mind that you know this to be true with 100% certainty. And this is wisdom that you now have, because this is a building block to be able to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. When I get to that, you're going to need to understand this. Okay. Now the second universal truth is called discontentedness. This is where the Buddha explains to you what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. Now, some people refer to this as suffering. If you've seen this in other places, they might describe this as suffering. But I don't use this word, and I'll explain to you why after I teach you what this universal truth is. So in the original Pali Canon, the Buddha uses the word dukkha. And this word dukkha translates to discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. What the Buddha is explaining here is the three feelings that the unenlightened mind experiences. And he talks about them as conditioned feelings. That based on some condition, the unenlightened mind is going to experience a pleasant feeling, a painful feeling, or a feeling that is neither painful nor pleasant. The pleasant feelings are things like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. It's very pleasant for you to experience this. Then there's painful feelings like sadness, anger, frustration, irritation, annoyance, Guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. These are very painful for the mind to experience. Then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I've put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's very painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. Something like shyness might be a good example of neither painful nor pleasant, where it's not exactly painful, but it's not exactly pleasant either. It's kind of uncomfortable. Or maybe you'll think of it this way, that if you were on public transportation and somebody that you don't know came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say, it's not painful, it's not pleasant, you're kind of dissatisfied or uncomfortable. That's what that third one is. Okay, so what the Buddha is explaining to you here is what the unenlightened mind experiences, is it experiences conditioned feelings, that based on some condition, you will then have a feeling. Okay, this is what the unenlightened mind experiences. So for an unenlightened being, they might wake up in the morning and they see it's sunny outside and they'll get so excited, right? They'll get so elated, right? Based on the condition that it's sunny, the mind is now experiencing happiness or excitement. Maybe they want to go hiking and they want to go invite their friends on this hiking trip, and they get so excited about this. And now someone might go take a shower. And when they take a shower and come out, it's raining. And now they get sad or frustrated, because their happiness was based on the condition that the sun was present. The sun is not permanent. So when it moves from sun to rain, now the mind experiences the sadness, because the sun is not permanent. So therefore their happiness is not permanent. This is why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind keeps basing its inner feelings on some condition. If it's sunny outside, I'll be happy. But if the sun is not permanent, then that means your happiness is not permanent. If your bank account balance is here, you will be happy. But then when it goes down here, you're not happy. Right? So I'm going to explain this for you more when we get to the Four Noble Truths. An enlightened being doesn't experience this. They don't have conditioned feelings. They're beyond this. An enlightened being, when they wake up in the morning, they're already happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for their happiness to exist in the mind. And now when they see it's sunny outside, they may be like, sweet, I'm going to go hiking today. I'm going to call my friends. This is going to be a great time. Right? Now when they go take a shower, and they come out and it's raining, it's like, oh, well, it's raining. Guess I'm not going to go hiking today. Maybe I'll stay home, read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over for dinner. We'll cook some food. They can maintain their happiness and their joy because it wasn't based on the sun. So this is what an enlightened being is experiencing. They're beyond the conditionality of the feelings. They're experiencing unconditioned mental qualities where the mind is always bright and cheerful and uplifted. It's not going up and down and up and down. An unenlightened being, their mind's going to be going up and down and up and down. It's only a matter of time before anger or frustration or annoyment or sadness or something like this comes into the mind. So the Buddha teaches you how to get beyond this, where you can experience the peace and joy that is permanent. So this is referred to as discontentedness. The mind is unstable, unsteady. It's shaken up. Have you ever been so excited you like tripped and fell, or you broke something, right? That's the shaking up of the mind. Because sometimes people think that it's desirable to experience happiness, right? But conditional happiness is actually shrinking your ability to be happy. Because conditional happiness means this condition has to be met, 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 and then I will be happy, right? So it actually shrinks your ability to be happy, right? So you need to be able to see the conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Because if you allow your mind to experience conditional happiness, then the painful feelings are just waiting for you right around the corner. If you get so happy because of that brand new job that you just got, well, 3 years later, when the company goes out of business, or they lay you off, or you get fired or whatever, you'll be sad and frustrated and angry. Right? So the conditionality of these feelings is causing the mind to go up and down and up and down. If you get happy and excited because of this job, that job is not permanent. So when you don't have that job anymore, you can't be happy. So you can get beyond this, where your mind is experiencing unconditional happiness, where your mind can just always be happy. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order for there to be happiness in the mind. So this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. conditional feelings, where the mind is discontent, it's unstable, it's unsteady. Now, you don't believe this, right? This is the intellectual understanding. You don't believe it. You need to move it into reflection to start to independently verify whether it's true or it's false. Because if the Buddha is explaining the unenlightened mind to you, and you know that your mind is unenlightened, you would be able to independently verify this, because this should be describing what it is that you experience. That you should be able to see every feeling you've ever had throughout your entire life matches one of these three categories in some way. That you have pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. If there's any feeling that you experience that doesn't fit into one of these three categories, we can talk about it when we get to the question period, and I will help you. So you can look at all the different feelings you've experienced, and you can see, yeah, that's explaining what I experienced, right? And that's how you independently verify it for yourself. Right? You don't believe what it is that you're learning from the Buddha, from the books, from me, from anybody. Okay? So now we'll move in. Oh, by the way, the reason why I don't call this suffering, right? Sometimes people refer to this as suffering if you've learned this in other places. The word suffering explains these painful feelings really well. Right? When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're frustrated, you might say you are suffering. But when you're excited and happy, like if your boss came in and said, hey, I'm going to give you a $20,000 raise, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? Or if your mom called you and said, hey, I'm going to come over to your house and we're going to make some great food and we're going to have a great time together, and you got really excited that she was coming to see you, would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not. Or say you were on public transportation and that person you don't know comes and sits really close to you and your body's touching their body. Would you say you were suffering in that situation? Probably not, right? So that's not the best word to describe the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the Buddha is talking about here that are experienced in the unenlightened state. The word suffering explains painful feelings really well, but you would be missing the understanding of the pleasant feelings and the neither painful nor pleasant. So you would understand the full problem and the full spectrum of what the Buddha is really describing here. So I encourage people to use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness, because it helps you to fully understand what it is that the Buddha is describing, where the word suffering doesn't really do that. So what you choose to think about in terms of these teachings is up to you, but this is what will bring your mind to the full understanding of what the Buddha taught. Because if you only understood 33% of what a teacher was teaching, how could you ever get to the ultimate goal? You'd be missing 66% of the understanding of his teachings. So to bring your mind fully to what he actually taught, the word discontentedness will do that much better. Then there's this third universal truth, and I apologize, the projector's down a little bit. Here at the bottom, it says non-self. This is the universal truth of non-self. This is the third universal truth. And what I'm going to do is explain to you the problem that the Buddha discovered in the mind, because this is actually the solution to that problem. In the teachings of the Buddha, he teaches you these 10 individual pollutions that are in the mind. He refers to them as the 10 fetters. What a fetter is it's like a shackle and a chain and a ball that's around your ankle. This is how they would keep prisoners trapped in a certain area during ancient times. They would just turn you out in a field, where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and this is how they would keep you confined to a certain area. So when he discovers these 10 pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters, because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state, experiencing the anger and sadness and frustration and all these feelings over and over and over again. So the path to enlightenment is about uprooting these fetters or these pollutions or these defilements or the taints, getting rid of them out of your mind. As you get rid of these 10 pollutions, that's where the mind experiences enlightenment. And this is a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that you're gradually training your mind to move to this enlightened mental state. One of the biggest myths of the life story of the Buddha is people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, gradually eliminating these pollutions out of the mind. So one of the very first pollutions, or the first pollution that the Buddha talks about, is called personal existence view. This is the first fetter. I'll explain to you guys what this is, because this is the problem, and what this universal truth is the solution to that. So the personal existence view is where the mind has confusion or misunderstanding, where it thinks that this body is you or this mind is you, where the mind is clinging to a self-image or a self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person, and then the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. So if you've ever been in a public situation, like a social situation, and you spilt something on the clothing, like ice cream or spaghetti sauce or something like this, and you were embarrassed in that situation, this is the mind's personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And if you're being perceived that way, you might feel happy or excited, or you might feel comfortable or good. But when you're not being perceived the way you want to be perceived, the mind will experience something like embarrassment. This is the mind clinging to the body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, the self-image. So if you've ever been, say, looking in a mirror and you saw a pimple or a mole or a wrinkle or a gray hair or something like this, and you were shaken up by that, this is your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And when you're not being perceived that way, your mind didn't like it. You were uncomfortable. Or if you've ever stood in front of your closet and you thought, who am I going to see today? And how do I want to look? And maybe you put on certain clothing and you look in the mirror and you're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And then you went and got some other clothing and you put that on. You're like, no, that's not how I want to look. And then you go get a third set and you put that on. You're like, okay, now I feel comfortable to leave the house, because the mind's clinging to this self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. If you were like me when I was a teenager and I was on my way to school, I would get out the gel and the mousse and I would run it through my hair and try to get every little hair in exactly the right spot. And I couldn't go outside until I got every single little hair in the right spot. And sometimes I would do this for so long, I would miss the school bus on the way to school, right? So if you did these kinds of things, this is the mind's personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it can only feel comfortable if that's the case. So the mind's clinging to this body, this self-image, wanting it to be permanent and wanting to appear to others in a certain way permanently. Then there's the self-identity. What your self-identity is things like your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. Any number of these things your mind could be clinging to, thinking that this is who you are as a person. If you were clinging to your nationality, for example, you might think that I am American, or I am Chinese, or I am Spanish, or I am Canadian, or I am an Aussie, or I am a Brit, or any of this I am. Well, now, if you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, you hear people talking very fondly about your nationality, you'll be happy. They're like, wow, they're talking about me. All Americans are lovely and kind and warm and gentle. Wow, I feel great, right? But then it's only a matter of time before 2 tables over, somebody says something degrading or disparaging about your nationality. And now you think they're talking about me. And now you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed, right? So you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy as long as your mind's clinging to an identity of who you think you are, right? Or maybe you cling to a job or occupation, thinking I am a police officer, right? If you think I am a police officer and you're doing that job, you'll feel great. But maybe when you get injured or you retire or you get fired and you're no longer doing that job anymore, you won't feel whole. You'll feel like less of a person. You'll be frustrated and agitated or annoyed because here you are driving a taxi thinking that I am a police officer and you're not doing that work anymore, and you'll feel like less of a person, right? Or think about it this way. If you've ever been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife, and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend, I am a husband, I am a wife, right? And now when you guys were together, there was a certain amount of comfort. But when you guys broke up or you ended the relationship and you are now single, your mind didn't identify that way. You might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because the mind's clinging to this identity of who you think you are as a person. And the mind's uncomfortable with I am single. It wants this relationship to feel whole and to feel like a person, right? So this is what happens when the mind has personal existence view. It can't be comfortable and content because it's clinging to the self-image or the self-identity, thinking that this is who you are as a person. So the solution to this is the universal truth of non-self, where the Buddha explains to you that there is no self, that this body is not you and this mind is not you. It's not who you are as a person. But the problem is that the mind's confused and it keeps thinking that this is who you are. And that's why it struggles in these types of situations that I just described. So ultimately, you get to a point where you strip this perspective away, that you understand with wisdom that this body is not you. It doesn't determine who you are. This mind, this identity that your mind might be holding on to, this doesn't determine who you are. So even though you were born on a certain land that might be referred to as China or Poland or the USA or some other place, just because this body was born on that earth doesn't mean the mind has to adopt the identity of I am American or I am Chinese. But the thing is that we've been taught our whole life that we should adopt this identity. We have flags and national anthems and sports teams and things like this that people cheer for, right? And people incentivize you to be able to adopt that identity of who you think you are as a person. So the Buddha helps you to be able to see that you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy as long as you're clinging to these kinds of things. In fact, sometimes people get this so strong in the mind that they go to their family, maybe in their home country, and they might say, I don't even know who I am anymore. I need to go find myself. I need to go find my true self. I'm going to leave and I'm going to go on a trip and to go find myself. Sometimes people come to places like Thailand to find themselves, right? Well, you're not going to find yourself in Thailand because it doesn't exist. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is that there is no self. Someone might come here for a few months or a few years and they find a new job, new hobbies, new activities, new friends or things like this. And they might go back home to their home country and be like, yeah, I feel so good. I found myself. I know who I am again, right? Well, they really haven't. They just found a new job, new hobbies, new activities, and new friends. As soon as all that stuff changes, that they think that is who they are, as soon as that stuff changes, they're right back in the same problem again. They don't know who they are, right? So when you cling to any of these things as who you think you are, your mind can't be permanently peaceful and permanently joyful. So the Buddha is teaching you that there is no self. It's important to understand that there is a body, there is a mind, and it's come together for this existence. But it's important to be able to understand that this doesn't define who you are as a person. Sometimes people even define who they are as a person through the decisions that they make, right? So let's just say in the past I used drugs and alcohol. Someone might think now that I am an addict or I am an alcoholic, right? Sometimes we're incentivized to say these things. Well, that's important to at least understand that it's unwise to go back to those things and never use those things again. But as soon as our mind identifies with that as who we are, we're taking choices and decisions that we made in the past, and we're identifying today who we are as a person based on decisions that we made in the past. And this can cause the mind to experience guilt or shame in some cases, right? Now, what I would encourage you to do is to not define who you are as a person through the decisions that you make. Just understand that those are decisions that you made, but it doesn't define who you are as a person, right? So you can get to the point where you realize non-self, that you realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you, this self-image is not you, this self-identity in the mind, that's not who you are. And it takes training to be able to understand this intellectually, and then to be able to independently verify it, and then to actually practice and strip this away. So what I've done so far is shared the intellectual part with you, helping you to understand it to a certain degree. And if you understand it, great. And if not, that's fine too, because sometimes people need a lot more time to understand this, because we spend so much time adopting this personal existence view over the course of our life. But now let's go into reflection so that you can start to independently verify whether this is true or false. right? So here's some of the ways that I help students to be able to independently verify that there is no self. Think about yourself when you were a child, teenager, early adulthood, and then now, these 4 phases of your life. Have you viewed yourself in exactly the same way, or have your perspectives of who you are as a person been constantly changing? What would you say? It's been changing, right? So you can see there's no permanent self. Here's another way. If your arm was amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? Alejandro shaking his head no. What about the rest of you guys? Steve says no. Marta says no. Okay. Right? So you're not less of a person just because there's less body, right? So intellectually, your mind understands that this body is not you. It's not who you are as a person. But in the heat of the moment, when someone says, wow, you're so beautiful, you look so handsome in that shirt, it really brings out the colors of your eyes. You're like, wow, they're talking about me. Wow, that feels great, right? But then when somebody says something degrading and disparaging about this body, you're frustrated or angry, right? That's the confusion. That's the misunderstanding that the mind has. Intellectually, you might understand this body is not you, because you would have answered that question differently. If you thought this body was you, when I asked you if your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You would have said yes, because there's less body, so therefore there's less of a person, right? But you didn't answer it that way. You said, no, there's less body, but I'm not less of a person. So there you can see intellectually, you understand that this body is not you. But the confusion that the mind has because of its personal existence view, the misunderstanding is when someone says something agreeable or disagreeable about this body, you're going to have certain feelings about that. That's what the unenlightened mind does due to its confusion, right? And then here's a third way that I help students to independently verify this. Point to yourself. Where are you? Can you point? Okay, she's pointing here. That's a common place that people point. Sometimes people point here, right? So if you're pointing here, or you're pointing up there. So if you're pointing here and you're saying, I am here, right? You need to look at what you're pointing to. You're pointing to a shirt. Ask yourself, is that who you are? That shirt that you're wearing. If we took off the shirt and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that you? Is that who you are? That's not you, right? Okay, so let's throw away the shirt. That's not you. Where are you? And someone might point again, right? So now we're pointing at skin, right? So if we took off the skin and we held it up and we pointed to it, is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that you, right? That's not you either, right? So we throw the skin away. Where are you? And someone might point again. Well, you've got ribs, you've got muscle tissue, you've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces and parts are you, right? But the mind holds on to this personal existence view, this confusion and misunderstanding, thinking that this is who you are. And that's why in the heat of the moment, when someone says something agreeable or disagreeable about this body, you get frustrated or you get so happy or excited, right? So you need to get to the point where you realize that this body is not you and this mind is not you. There is a body, there is a mind. They've come together for this existence, but it doesn't define who you are as a person. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions before we move in further. Yeah, if you have questions, if you could come get a microphone, that would be great. Anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any questions that you like that way. So let me know what your questions are. The mic hasn't engaged yet. There you go.
Yeah, I was wondering, can I use the impermanent or permanent to describe the Four Noble Truths? Or it gonna looks like some science results, and it gonna be overturned in like 1,000 years later.
Yeah. So the Four Noble Truths themselves, in the way that they are experienced in the world, That's permanent because it's an unconditioned object. It's part of the natural laws. But the way each person describes them, because this is what we see, hear, smell, taste, touch, and thoughts and ideas through the mind, that's impermanent. You'll hear different people describe the Four Noble Truths differently from teacher to teacher, because those teachers, we're all impermanent. We say things differently. We talk about things differently. But the natural laws themselves and how they are experienced in the world, they are permanent. And that's why once you learn the Four Noble Truths and you independently verify it, you'll see the truth with 100% wisdom. And that wisdom is unconditioned because it's describing the natural laws. You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to move to the next part, which is one more building block to help you. Then we'll go into the Four Noble Truths. This is a definition that you need to know in order to understand the Four Noble Truths. It's craving, desire, attachment, or expectations, or wants, or holding, grasping, clinging. This is the mind's longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases and chases and chases. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst. If you've ever been at the mall and your mind was like, oh, new pair of shoes. Look at those shoes. They're so beautiful. Oh, I can't wait to get them on my feet. Oh, I just can't wait to get those shoes. Or maybe it was jewelry or a new clothing or a video game or a new mobile phone or some computer, car, house. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way the mind's longing, yearning for the object. It's the mind pulling towards the objects of its affection, thinking that something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you observed this in your mind? How it pulls towards things, wanting things, longing, yearning for things, thinking that it's going to provide some lasting satisfaction. You guys know what I'm talking about? Right? Okay. You've experienced this. Okay. All right. So this is called craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning. So now I'll teach you the Four Noble Truths in a way that you can independently verify so that you can see what's causing these feelings and you can actually have a real breakthrough here to be able to understand what's causing them so that then you can eliminate them. So the first Noble Truth is that everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. This is describing the problem that you experience. The problem that you experience is that your mind's not steady. It's not stable. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down. Sure, you get happy and excited, but it's only a matter of time before you get frustrated, agitated, or annoyed, right? And you have some peacefulness here and there in the middle, but it's only a matter of time before your mind experiences one of these discontent feelings. This is the up and down of the unenlightened mind. This is the problem that each unenlightened being is experiencing. And it's uncomfortable to experience that because you're not experiencing the permanent happiness and the permanent joy. Your mind's going up and down throughout your life. So this is the problem that the Buddha discovered. Then the second Noble Truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness, the problem, is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world around you is impermanent. Okay, so I'm going to say that a few times, and I'm going to give you examples to help you. Okay, so the discontent feelings, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, it's being caused by craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. The mind wants things to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. So here's some examples. Okay, think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with. At the very beginning of the relationship, things were probably going really well, right? Felt all kinds of pleasure. Felt so great to be around this person, right? And now you guys are spending time together. Maybe you're going to the movies. Maybe you're going to dinner. Maybe you're going to the park, having great walks and having wonderful conversations. You might even be having sexual contact, intimacy together, right? It's like all this pleasure is happening in the relationship. Wow, someone's calling you, sending you text messages, checking in on you. Feels so great to have somebody interested in your life and what you're doing, right? But then over time, things start to get difficult, right? You get angry and you get frustrated and irritated and annoyed, and they get that way with you too. And you guys end up breaking up and you end the relationship. And now you might be angry. You might be frustrated. You might be lonely or bored. You might be missing this person. This isn't from your love. This is the mind's craving. This is the mind longing, yearning for this relationship to be permanent. When in reality, the relationship is not permanent. It's constant. Your relationships are constantly changing. But the mind is holding on and craving permanence, wanting this relationship to be permanent. And when this person was in your life, there was a certain level of comfort. But when you guys broke up and you guys were no longer together, the mind was holding on, craving permanence, and it was uncomfortable when this person wasn't in your life. So this is the mind causing its own discontent feelings. This is also can be observed if somebody has died that's close to you. Maybe if your parents or your grandparents or your brothers and sisters or other people have died. You might have grieved or had sorrow or sadness during this period of time. You haven't done anything wrong, so to speak. You're not a bad person that you're experiencing this. This is what every unenlightened mind experiences, and everyone has been born unenlightened. That when grandma and grandpa were alive, the mind was getting what it wanted, right? And so it feels happy and excited. But then when you experience the death of grandma or grandpa, the mind's not getting what it wants. And now it's angry and sad or frustrated or feeling some other discontent feeling. And grandma and grandpa had to die. The only reason why they died is because they were born. Every single one of us are going to die. None of us are permanent. But the mind's holding on to this person, wanting them to be permanent. Now, as long as they're alive, there's a certain level of comfort, but when they die, the mind doesn't like that impermanence. So one of the ways to say this is the mind's craving permanence, or another way to say this is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. When things are changing, the mind doesn't like that because it craves permanence. You can see this not only if someone dies that's close to you, but if you've ever been to a wedding and people were crying or grieving, or you were crying or grieving at a wedding. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence, right? Here's brothers or sisters going off into the world with other people, and the mind's holding on, right? Mom and dad are there crying because this is their baby, and they're going off into the world with someone else, and this is my child, and the mind's holding on and craving permanence, and they realize in that ceremony that, oh my goodness, they are not permanent. They are not going to be in my life permanently. And now they're going off with someone else. And now someone thinks, oh my goodness, that's my brother. That's my sister. How dare you take them away from me, right? This is what the mind's doing. It's struggling with this impermanence. Or if you could think back to getting dropped off at school, maybe when you're going to school for the first time, or if you've seen kids get dropped off at school, they're going to cry and cry and cry. And mom and dad might be crying too, right, when they drop their kids off at school, right? Because the mind's holding on and craving permanence. It's not love that's causing this, right? Because love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. Love doesn't cause painful feelings. If you love your child, of course you would like them to go get an education. Go get an education. This is great. Go to school. Right? That's not what's causing the painful feelings. The painful feelings are being caused because the mind's holding on. The kid went to school and mom and dad and the child thought mom and dad were permanent. Here's this kid going off into the world without mom and dad. And the kid's mind was holding on, thinking mom and dad are permanent, and they're not permanent. Here's some other examples that don't deal with relationships that will help you to maybe see this even more clearly. Think if you had a brand new car. Maybe you've saved up for this brand new car. You've been saving for a long time. You purchase this car. You drive it off the parking lot, and you're so proud of that car. It's like, wow, look how successful I am. Got this brand new car, right? And now you're driving down the road, and you park it at a store, and you go inside, and you come out, and there's a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness, you might be so frustrated, so angry, right? You've been saving for this car for so long, right? Well, if you're angry or frustrated or whatever discontent feeling you're experiencing, it's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not causing you to be frustrated. What's causing the mind to be angry or frustrated is it's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to look permanently beautiful when that's impossible. This car is not permanent. It is impermanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. These are all things that are going to happen to this car because it is impermanent. But if your mind craves permanence, when you experience these things, you'll experience the frustration or agitation or annoyance. Think back to when we were kids. Probably went to your mom and dad and asked for chocolate and ice cream. You're probably so excited when they gave you chocolate and ice cream. You might have thought they were the best parents ever because they gave you chocolate and ice cream. And each day you asked for it, they might have given you chocolate and ice cream. But eventually, at some point, you were like, Mommy, Daddy, can I have chocolate and ice cream? And they said, no, you can't. You're so angry. You thought they were the worst mommy and daddy ever, right? Well, it wasn't mom and dad that was causing that anger. That was your craving. That was your longing, yearning, wanting this chocolate and ice cream to be permanent. That if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings, happiness, excited, elated. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. And then there's the neither painful nor pleasant feelings that are experienced as well. So these are some examples to help you be able to see this for yourself. But you need to independently verify this because you can't believe me, right? So what we've done so far is the intellectual part, helping to explain it to you. But now reflect on it. Take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Might have been this morning or yesterday or last week. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for? If you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you were frustrated or agitated or annoyed. You should be able to see this for yourself. But if you can't, let me know and I will help you. Because plenty of students have asked me over the years. Because what I'm sharing with you is that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings. It's not the outside world. Because what the unenlightened mind does, because of its lack of wisdom, is it firmly believes that it's other people who are causing you to be angry or sad or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. But in reality, it's your own mind that's causing this. And this is where you can have a real breakthrough to be able to see once and for all what's actually causing these feelings, because then you can actually eliminate it. But you have to be able to independently verify it for yourself. So you might look at a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling to be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing this. One time I had a student contact me after studying with me for a little while. They were trying to grapple with the Four Noble Truths, and they said, David, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay, what you got? And they're like, well, I got frustrated the other day, and I just don't see how it's my mind that's causing this. And I was like, all right, well, what happened? They said, well, I went to work, and when I went to work, my house looked beautiful. And when I came home a few hours, 8 hours later, the house was a wreck. My wife had this craft project all over the house. And when I walked in, I got frustrated. How did my mind cause it? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? And I said, no, she didn't cause you to get frustrated. It was your own mind craving permanence. When you went to work, the house looked a certain way, and you had the expectation that it was going to look exactly the same way when you came home. But when you came home, it looked different. The only thing that happened is change. That's it. But your mind was craving permanence. You wanted the house to look a certain way permanently, and this just isn't possible. So as long as your mind is craving permanence, you will experience discontentedness. And just like the house couldn't look that way permanently, this craft project all over the house, that's not permanent either. She's going to put it away. Maybe you even help her to put it away, right? So you're going to experience constant change in the world. Right? Just like we talked about when we first started out, there was a certain number of students that were here and more people came. That was change. But now some people have left. That's change too, right? Things are going to be constantly changing around you. You're going to be experiencing constant change. But if you crave permanence, when you're in these situations, you'll experience discontentedness, right? So you need to be able to see the true cause of your feelings is craving, desire, attachment, the longing, the yearning, the wanting things to be permanent. And you should be able to independently verify this. And if you have trouble, let me know and I will help you. Then we've got the third noble truth. The third noble truth is explaining the solution to this problem and the cause of this problem. If the cause of this problem is craving, desire, attachment, well, the solution to eliminate your discontent feelings is to eliminate the cause. If you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. So the Buddha teaches you that you can eliminate your discontent feelings by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. If you eliminate the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection, you can actually eliminate the discontentedness. But understand that when you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, you're not going to swing all the way to this other side. That's what the mind will do for a period of time. But ultimately, what you would like to do is come to the middle. Because what the mind in the unenlightened state can see is it can usually see this chasing, this longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. And when you're not doing that, your mind usually will swing all the way to the other side where it's dull and lethargic and lazy, right? That's not what the Buddha is teaching you either. He's teaching you the middle way, where you can come to the middle and gradually pursue your goals, objectives, or interests through wise decision making, without longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, and also without being dull and lethargic, but just making wise decisions towards certain goals and objectives. Right? So you can eliminate this longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, because in that situation, the mind can only be happy when it gets what it wants. That's the only way it can be happy. And you're not going to always get what you want because of impermanence. You can't always get what you want. So if you keep allowing the mind to chase and chase and chase, then you can only be happy when you get what you want. And you're actually shrinking your ability to be happy. Because the mind thinks, if my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if my bank account is this, if the weather is this, if I have this kind of house, this kind of car, if my friends do this, then I'll be happy, right? So that means your happiness shrinks because you have all these conditions that have to be met, right? And it's not possible for all those conditions to be met. So you can eliminate that craving for permanence and understand that things are constantly changing in the world around you. And this is where the training comes in, because understanding this intellectually is one side, but then actually training the mind to do it is a whole different story, right? So you can independently verify this, what I'm sharing with you as well. Right? Because up here, we talked about how the mind is causing its own discontentedness. Remember that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with and you were happy when you guys were together, but when you guys broke up, you were sad or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing that person? Well, as long as you had that craving in your mind, you were experiencing discontentedness. But at some point, you eliminated your craving, desire, attachment. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with somebody else, so be it. You were like, you know what? Go be with someone else. Do whatever you'd like to do. Or if she would like to live in another part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. You let go of this person and you didn't crave and long and yearn for them to be in your life anymore. And that's where your peace and your joy came back in. Right? So when you eliminate that craving for permanence, that's when you eliminate your discontentedness. And you've already seen that to be true. Because when we were children, we really craved that chocolate and ice cream. Boy, did we want that chocolate and ice cream, right? If we had chocolate and ice cream 2 or 3 times in a day, that was the best day ever, right? But if we didn't have our chocolate and ice cream, we were angry or frustrated. But at some point, we were like, you know what? Had enough chocolate and ice cream. You know, if I have chocolate and ice cream, that's nice. But if I don't have it, that's fine too. And our mind let go. And now you don't have maybe a craving, a longing, yearning for chocolate and ice cream anymore, perhaps. I don't know, right? So at some point, your mind let go. And you don't get angry and frustrated when you don't have chocolate and ice cream. But when we were a kid, that's what we had. But at some point, we let it go. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, to let go. Okay? And the way that you do that is the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete, perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to eliminate all your cravings, desires, attachments. This is the Eightfold Path in an image, but there's words behind each one of these that's going to teach you how to actively train your mind. And all of it starts with right view. Right view is the foundation that everything else is built upon. right? So what right view is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's your own craving, your own longing, your own yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. That would be right view. What wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings and emotions that you have. That's typically what the unenlightened mind does. Because when you get angry and you get frustrated and you're experiencing those painful feelings, the mind's ego thinks, well, it can't be me that's causing these. It has to be somebody else because I'm perfect, right? It's everyone else that's the problem, right? So that's what the mind's ego is going to want to tell you, is that it's everyone else who's the problem. You are actually perfect, right? So you need to be able to have right view where you see that the real cause of these discontent feelings is within your own mind. Because when those painful feelings are arising and you attribute this to something external, your mind's going to want to push these people away, right? This is called aversion, where you might have pushed people away or you might have pushed a situation away. Maybe your friends and family, you've been pushing them away. And if you've done that, that's okay. That's where you are right now. But that's what the unenlightened mind will do, thinking that that's going to solve the problem if I push these people away. But you can see it didn't solve the problem because you still get angry, you still get frustrated, you still get agitated or annoyed. If that was the true cause of the problem, when you push people away, you'd be peaceful and joyful, right? Or the second thing you'll do when you think the problem is external is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile with people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another being, trying to fear them into doing things your way, right? And this doesn't work either because you can't fear 8 billion people into doing things your way. Right? And now the third thing that someone might do is they might put their expectations on people and try to control them and pressure them or force them to do things their way. Right? And none of this works because you can't live harmoniously with all people because you're pushing people away, being bitter, harsh, and hostile towards them, or putting your expectations on them and trying to control them. In fact, people might actually be doing this with you too. Right? So there's a better way of life. That's what the Buddha taught, this better way of life. And that's the Eightfold Path of training your mind to be able to understand this better way of life where you can be peaceful and joyful all the time. But it starts with right view, understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because if you thought it was other people that was causing these feelings, there's nothing for you to do because it's everyone else that's causing the problem. Right? But if you understand that it's your own mind that's causing these problems and is causing these difficulties, now you actually have some real work to do. This inner work, this self-growth, that's what is built upon the entire path, is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, because now you can do that inner work to grow and develop and become a better and better individual. Okay? So this is right view. So any questions on the Four Noble Truths? Anything you guys would like to ask? Yeah, please.
One question, how you can differentiate chasing with taking wise decisions? Because some people are in this situation where, for example, if they lose their jobs, they have to help their family. Maybe they are not able to get a job for a while. So they get frustrated and it comes all these emotions because they have to support their family. Or also, when you learn all these things, and you start chasing things because, for example, you have a mortgage and you have to pay every month and you are chasing the money because if not, how you can change your mind to stop chasing and more thinking that I can take wise decisions. I don't know if...
Yeah, that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. You need to practice the entire path. It's not going to be a magical thing. It's not going to be snapping the fingers, but each one of these steps is working towards training the mind of how to be able to do this. That you can have a mortgage, you can have a job, you can have relationships and cars and houses. You can have these kinds of things, but learn how to train your mind to not crave for it to be permanent. Right? Because if you're happy when your bank account balance is here, that means when it goes here, you'll be sad or frustrated. So you can learn how to train your mind that, yeah, I need this money in order to live my life, but I don't need to attach my emotions to it. right? Same thing with the mortgage or any other number of things that you just talked about. You can train your mind to not base your feelings on these things, but you need to be able to learn how to do it through the entire Eightfold Path. It's not just right view, but all these factors need to be implemented into your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because sometimes, for example, I have students also, and they ask me, and I do an exercise about losing the job. So I see if there is a craving and things like that, and some of them crave stability, like not the change. And sometimes I don't know what kind of advice I can give to them.
Yeah, you can tell them straight out, your jobs are never going to be permanent. Your jobs are going to be constantly changing. This job is not permanent. All you can do is not cling to the job and base your feelings on whether you have this job or not, and just plan that someday you're not going to have this job anymore, and that's okay. And now you plan to be able to have another job, or you have financial security that you can retire, or any of these other kinds of things, because things are going to change in your life. That craving for stability, that's the craving for permanence. And you're never going to be in a situation where things are permanent. It's just not going to happen. Things are going to be constantly changing. So when you hear that, yeah, that's the mind craving permanence. So the problem isn't that they've lost their job. That's not the problem. That's just like the wind's blowing. You wouldn't be upset because the wind's blowing, right? So losing a job, why do you have to be upset about it? Because this is just impermanence. It's just like the wind blows, you're going to lose your job. Same thing is true when people die, right? This is normal. This is a normal part of life. It's just like the wind blowing. And every time the wind blows, you don't get upset. So you can train your mind to understand, like, yeah, this is a normal part of life. I have this job for 3 years. Now it's over, and I need to go find this other job, right? And now you just have prepared yourself to have skills and ability to be able to go find another job. And then you also have savings that gives you enough cushion to give you time to go find that other job. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck and you're not building skills and abilities, when you lose your job, you'll really struggle to be able to find another job, and you won't have the support you need to be able to help you during that time frame. So if you already know this job is not permanent, I could lose it at any time, the company could go out of business at any time, now with that wisdom, you can make better decisions. Save a bit of money, build up your skills, so that then when you lose this job, you have the cushion and you have the ability to go get another job. Hey, no big deal. Off to the next thing.
Yeah, I think that is the problem, right? Like, people think that are permanent and they don't plan it, so is when it happens, is when the problems come also, right?
Yeah, well, the problem is that they have a lack of wisdom, that they don't understand this job is not permanent. It's not permanent. They're craving permanence and thinking this job's going to be permanent. So then when they meet with impermanence, they struggle during that period of time. There was one period of time where I was working for a company, an IT company, and they had some problems and they had to downsize, and a lot of people were getting laid off. And eventually I ended up getting laid off, and you know, I went into the office and they explained to me that I was getting laid off, and I was like, okay, you know, what do you need from me? And they were like, oh, we need your laptop back. You know, we need your mobile phone. We need this, we need that. I was like, okay, I'll bring it to you tomorrow. It's at home. I'll bring it in. And they were like, wow, this was so easy. Like, we thought you were going to be upset and angry. And I was like, why? I was like, you know, this is, I didn't say it at the time, but in my mind, this job was impermanent. I know, like, why cling to it and hold on to it? Besides, I already had another job because I knew I was getting laid off. Hadn't started yet, but I already had found another job. But nonetheless, I wasn't upset, and they were surprised that I wasn't, you know, angry and upset. So you can experience these things, right, without being upset and angry. So you just need to understand impermanence. And when you understand impermanence, you will make decisions differently. Like, for example, like right now, I'm live streaming to 6 different platforms, right? So if I was only using one platform, if I was only using Zoom, for example, and all the students were coming in through Zoom, well, when Zoom doesn't work someday, the students online wouldn't be able to learn with me, right? But by understanding impermanence, I use Facebook, I use YouTube, I use Zoom, I live stream to multiple different groups within Facebook, because that way, if any one particular place is down, because sometimes it is down because of impermanence, the students always have another way to be able to access the teachings. And then they're recorded also. So when you understand the wisdom of these natural laws, you will make decisions differently, and then that's going to promote success in your life. But if you crave permanence and you're wanting that job to be stable, then now when you don't have it anymore, you'll struggle because you haven't done any planning whatsoever based on the wisdom of the natural laws. And that's why the mind struggles and has difficulties. You're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
To the truth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are we pursue? I was wondering that. Are we pursuit the truth? Yeah, the Four Noble Truths.
You said something about pursuit of the truth?
Yeah, like desire or have longing to.
Oh, like a desire to get to enlightenment, you mean? Is that what you're talking about? I don't understand your question. I'm not hearing everything that you're saying.
Yeah, I was wondering that the people desire the Four Noble Truths. Are people desire the Noble Truths?
Do people desire the Four Noble Truths?
Yeah.
You mean like a desire to learn them?
Yeah. I'm just wondering that there is the different desire, like pursue other things.
So when we describe craving, desire, attachment, it's describing this longing, yearning in the mind, this wanting, this expecting, this chasing after the objects of your affection. That's what's the cause of the discontent feelings when the mind's longing, yearning. What you would ultimately like to get to is not that, because that's going to produce discontentedness, but you're also not interested in over here where you're dull and lethargic and you're not interested in doing anything at all. Because sometimes people are like, well, if I'm not wanting and I'm not expecting and I'm not desiring something, wouldn't my mind go over here? Well, yeah, if it's not trained, yeah, that's probably where it will go because you're so used to chasing things, so it'll probably go over here. But that's not where the Buddha's guiding you. The Buddha's guiding you to come to the middle where you can pursue things as a goal, as an objective or an interest and gradually work towards something, but without longing, yearning. And what some people are confused about is they will have a goal, and then if they get their goal and they accomplish the goal, they'll be happy. But if they don't accomplish their goal, they'll be sad or frustrated. That's not a goal. That's a craving, desire, attachment. Because a goal, you can be happy regardless of whether you achieve it or not. A craving, desire, attachment, you can only be happy when you get what you want. And when you don't get what you want, you're angry or sad or frustrated or some other painful feeling. So if you have a true goal, you can work towards it through wise decision making, and whether you accomplish it or not, you can maintain your joy, you can maintain your happiness. So if you're working your way towards a goal and you're only 80% of the way there, you could look at it and be like, okay, well, what am I going to do here? I could extend my timeline and give myself more time to accomplish this goal, or I could add more resources to allow me to accomplish this. Or, you know what, I'm fine with the 80%. I don't need to go any further. This is everything I need right here. I can just stop right here. And now you can maintain your joy. You can maintain your contentedness and your peacefulness. That's a true goal. But people aren't used to that kind of goal because they're not actually thinking of a goal in that way. The cravings, desires, attachments are masquerading as goals, and people are calling it a goal when it's really not a goal. It's actually a craving, desire, attachment. So if you come to the middle where you gradually work towards your goals and objectives, you can be peaceful and joyful all the time. But the thing is that the mind doesn't know how to do this in the unenlightened state because it hasn't practiced the Eightfold Path. It's got these pollutions in there. So it's not doing the pursuing of a goal, objective, or interest through wise decision making. It's chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing. So that's why the mind needs gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to gradually move it to the middle. Because the mind doesn't just eliminate craving and go right to the middle. It's going to eliminate your cravings, and then it's going to swing all the way over here to the other side. And then you're like, whoa, this doesn't feel good. And now you're going to swing back over here. And you're like, whoa, that's craving again. But it's not as much as it was, but it's less. And it's like, no, that's not the middle. And then you come over here, and then eventually, like a pendulum, your mind finds the middle. And it's like, that feels comfortable, right? Like your work, like we were talking about, like having a balanced work life, personal life and work life, you need to find that middle, because your mind's going to kind of swing, right? Where if you didn't have work for a really long time, you might crave a lot of work and do a lot of work and try to make a lot of money, but then you get exhausted and tired and you're like, whoa, that's not the middle. And you got to kind of back off of that and kind of come towards the middle, where you can be like, that feels good, that feels peaceful, that feels joyful, right? And now you can be in the middle.
But I saw some people's, and they pursued the joyful and the peaceful, and then they find they're learning the Four Noble Truths. So it's the right chain, or we learn the Four Noble Truths, and after that we find the peaceful and joyful.
The Four Noble Truths is explaining to you why your mind experiences these feelings, so that then you understand where the real true cause of these are is within your own mind, so that then you can do the work to fix it. That's what the Four Noble Truths are there for, to explain to you what's the true cause of the problem. What is the problem, the cause of it, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So now in those four simple statements, you can have an understanding that the problem is discontentedness. The cause of that problem is craving, desire, attachment. The elimination of the problem is to eliminate your craving, desire, attachment. And the way to do that is the Eightfold Path. And now the rest of the path is going to teach you how to actually do it, how to accomplish it.
So if we first start to find the joyful or the peaceful, the people mind to escape something, or in that progress, and they're gonna find the solution of the problem.
This is the solution right here, the Eightfold Path. You need to be able to learn each one of these factors and be able to train your mind through this. This is the path to enlightenment. This is how to actually train your mind. So I haven't given you the entire solution. It takes me about 2.5 hours to teach this entire teaching. And I teach it many times throughout the month. So you can attend one of our classes, courses, or retreats where I teach it, or you can read the book, or you can watch the recordings, because I've recorded it many times on our YouTube channel and on our podcast, because you need to learn the entire solution. And then you need to implement it on a day-to-day basis through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. It's not going to be like a 1-week thing. It's not going to be a 1-month thing, or even a 1-year thing. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress to move your mind toward this enlightened mental state. Because you're uprooting these pollutions out of the mind. And they didn't get there in 1 year, and you're not going to be able to eliminate them in a short period of time like that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions here online.
Sorry, here's another question.
Yeah.
I think the Four Noble Truths are the teaching is so important. But in a lot of the Buddhism countries, such as China, Thailand, and people that go to the temple, they pray for health, pray for money. Yeah, they think the Buddha as a god. Yeah, but it seems that they think, oh God, oh the Buddha God, I pray for this. You give me the health, give me money. They think it's like a business. Yeah, but I think the Dharma, the teaching is so important. Yeah. Right.
This is the challenge that a lot of people aren't studying with the original words of the Buddha. So impermanence has affected the teachings of the Buddha. Because he lived 2,500 years ago and he taught what he taught, there were plenty of people who understood his teachings then, and there were plenty of people who got to enlightenment. And then after his death, there were plenty of people who were getting to enlightenment. But because of impermanence, people changed his teachings. slowly but surely. And now there's people who are doing things like praying, right? But if you go back and you look at the original teachings of the Buddha, he explains how prayer doesn't lead to any type of results. I can show it to you in his original words if you like. It's in the book series. It's in the resources that I share, where he says, if you aspire for beauty, or if you aspire for fame, or you aspire for peacefulness, or you aspire for wealth, or these kinds of things, he says you should practice the way to obtain those things, meaning you should make decisions that lead to the attaining of wealth, right? You can't pray your way to wealth. And what he says is, if we could obtain the things that we want through prayer, then who among us would lack for anything, right? Because if it was just as easy as praying for something and then boom, we'd become wealthy, well, why would we have lack of wealth? Because it'd be so easy, we'd all be wealthy, right? And money's not going to lead to happiness anyway. But if you aspire to attain something, obtain anything, you need to practice the way of obtaining it. Like if you're hungry and you would like food, you're going to need to make decisions to be able to get food. You can't pray your way to food. It's not possible. So unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the world that aren't studying with the original words of the Buddha, even if they consider themselves Buddhist. Even here in Thailand, you have a lot of misunderstandings in some places regarding his teachings. So whenever you see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, or any of these things, right away you know that that's not the teachings of the Buddha. And going into that environment to try to learn, you wouldn't be able to get what you need in order to get to enlightenment. So as soon as you see people doing those things, you know that this isn't an environment that's going to help you get to enlightenment. Because even to get to the first stage of enlightenment, an individual needs to understand that rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer doesn't lead to enlightenment. So if this person is doing those kinds of things, then they haven't even gotten to the first stage of enlightenment, let alone enlightenment itself. So they wouldn't be able to guide other people to enlightenment. So you would like to look for places that are studying based on the original words of the Buddha. And that's where you'll be able to then get to enlightenment, through those teachings. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, please get a mic. I'm going to answer this question on YouTube while you're getting a mic. If the body and the mind are not you, what defines the self? There is no self, right? That's what the Buddha is teaching you through the universal truth of non-self, is that there is no self. But what the mind's going to keep trying to do in the unenlightened state is it's going to keep grasping for a self. It's going to keep looking for it. Well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? Right? This is the mind still grasping, looking to grab onto something, is who you think you are as a person. There is no self. That's what you need to be able to get to. But it's challenging for the mind to be able to see that clearly when you first start. But what you can do is, if you download this first book from our website, go to buddhadailywisdom.com and click on free books. You can get this first book. It's for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions on Amazon, or you can get them here at the temple by reimbursing us for the printing cost. If you go to Volume 1, Chapter 16, you're going to see a lot more details around personal existence view, because people need a lot more time to understand and absorb this teaching. They don't typically understand it the first time. So you're not the body, you're not the mind, there is no self. What the Buddha teaches is that there is no you there, right? But the mind keeps trying to grab onto something as who you are. It's going to keep trying to do that until you realize non-self, and you realize that this body is not you, this mind is not you, and it's not a combination of the two. Mm-hmm. The people online won't be able to hear you, but if you talk, I'll have to just repeat your question for you. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. All right. So the question was that, in China and Thailand, there's some people praying to the Buddha, and she's saying, what's the difference between that Buddha and what I'm talking about, right? So there, in terms of this individual who we refer to as the Buddha, it was only this one person, right? But people's perspectives of what they should be doing is different based on what they've been exposed to as his teachings. And that's because of impermanence. And not everybody understands what he taught in the same way. And what I encourage you to do is don't believe me. Don't believe others. Don't even believe the books, but cultivate the wisdom for yourself. Because the Buddha is not teaching you to worship and pray and things like this, because that's not going to lead to peace and joy, right? You've probably done some of those things perhaps, and you see, you still get angry, you still get frustrated. But if you learn his actual teachings, his true teachings through his own words, and you don't believe them, but you learn, reflect, and practice, you'll be able to see that it's improving the condition of your mind, because the Buddha taught you to cultivate wisdom. That's what's going to lead to your peace and your joy. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship that leads to wisdom. You can't get to wisdom through those things. That's why he never taught those. So what I'm teaching here is based on the original words of the Buddha. I know with 100% certainty that this leads to enlightenment, but each individual person needs to develop their wisdom to be able to gain that confidence. I can't give you confidence. I can't remove your doubt from your mind, but by you investigating and examining the teachings, by you reflecting on them to verify them and practice them, you'll be able to see the truth for yourself, that your mind is moving to this more peace and more joy. Because you'll be in situations where you once used to get angry, and you'll be in that same situation and you're not getting angry and frustrated anymore. And you see how I walked you through this, that you could independently verify every single aspect of what I was teaching you, right? And that's the way that an individual would teach who's guiding you to enlightenment, because you shouldn't believe what I'm teaching you. That's not going to lead to your enlightenment. You need to get to wisdom, because the whole problem is that the mind lacks wisdom about the natural laws. So a teacher who's guiding you to enlightenment would teach you to think for yourself and investigate and examine those teachings so that you can get to wisdom. Whenever you see the prayer and the worship, that's not the teachings of the Buddha. Even though those people might be wearing orange robes and shaving their hair, and they're at a temple that's called a Buddhist temple and all these things, they're just having misunderstandings. And they're not bad people. They truly think that what they're doing is truly from the Buddha, but they just haven't studied the original teachings, so they don't know. This is part of what the Buddha calls ignorance, or the unknowing of true reality, or the lack of wisdom that the mind has. And as long as it has that lack of wisdom, the mind can't see beyond that. And sometimes people base their livelihood on doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer. People will be paying them for that, right? And now if they did something else, they have to do work in order to improve their mind and gain this new wisdom. And the mind's not interested in doing that. They're just maybe potentially complacent with doing those rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, and getting money for those things. And now it's just like, okay, well, I got what I need. I got food and water and clothing and shelter and medical care. I don't need to do anything else. But if you would like to experience this enlightened mental state, you're going to need to do the work and move away from the rituals and ceremonies and prayer, because those things aren't going to lead to your enlightenment. Okay. You have a question too? The batteries might be out. They're impermanent. The microphone's impermanent, just like the Buddha said, right? His teachings apply all throughout time.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, so in many faith traditions, prayer is just encouraged and encouraged. Is there any benefit to humanity or human beings? Is there any? Does prayer offer any benefit, even outside of the teachings of the Buddha, as that was not part of it? But is there a benefit to it?
This is something that I teach when we get to chapter 18, which is 6 weeks from now, because we're going to talk about the topic of God, right? Because some people have been taught things about God, that God is punishing us, or you should fear God, or God has a plan for you and you need to like fulfill his plan and all these kinds of things. So we're going to talk about this being of God, because you can get to enlightenment with a relationship with God, or you can get to one without a relationship. You can get to enlightenment without a relationship. But if you've been taught about God, there's probably things that you've been taught that are not true. So we're going to talk about this topic of God, and we'll talk about prayer and these kinds of things and going into that more for you. Yep. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, even though it's a little bit later, this particular chapter 12, I go into some different things that can be cravings, desires, attachments. Your mind can actually crave anything and everything, even a bottle of water. Your mind could have a craving, desire, attachment. It's not the object itself. So for example, if I was going for a hike and I had a bottle of water, a liter of water in my car, and I get out of the car and I was going down the trail, 30 minutes down the trail, and I was like, oh my goodness, my water, oh, I forgot my water. And now you hurry up and go back to the car and you sling your door open. It's like, my water. Your mind's attached. You're craving the water to be permanent. Because you could also be on the trail 30 minutes down the trail and you're like, I forgot my water. I'm going to be out here for like 6 or 8 hours. I should turn around and go get that water. Right? And now you turn around and you go get your water and you're like, my water. Right? So the craving, desire, attachment isn't the object, right? Because in this scenario, the object is the same. The difference is what's going on in the mind, right? So all of these things could be cravings, but they don't have to be cravings, right? So I just give you this list in the book, and it goes on. There's not just this table, but there's this next one where the mind can have craving for any number of these things, right? And now when you have these cravings for these things, there's certain potential harmful effects as a result. So let's just say someone had a craving and a desire for automobiles, and they were just buying, multiple automobiles. They will experience excessive work because they're having to afford all these different cars, right? There can be ego, like, look at my cars are so nice. And there can be a lack of time with those that are close to you because you're so busy maintaining all these cars, right? And then of course pollution as well, having all these cars around, right? These are the harmful effects of craving and longing, yearning for a car. Someone could crave children, right? Maybe that you're having a longing, yearning to have children, right? It's not that you're a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong, right? It's not the child itself. It's the mind longing, yearning for it. And now if somebody has a child, maybe they're really happy about that. But if you can't have children, maybe biologically you're unable to have children, or maybe you don't have a partner to be able to have children. And now if your mind is longing, yearning for it, you'll experience discontentedness. So there's these kinds of things that can occur. So I just go through a whole bunch of them here. You guys can read in the book. These things, by and large, they can be cravings, but they don't have to be. Now, something like substances, those are cravings, right? That you can't take cocaine without a craving, desire, attachment, or heroin or crystal methamphetamine. There's a craving for pleasantness there, and the mind's longing, yearning to get to this pleasant feelings, and it's using a substance to be able to do that. So you guys can read this in the book. If you have questions about it, you can let me know. But what I'm doing here in this chapter 12 is preparing you for chapter 13, because next week what I'm going to teach you is how to almost surgically go in and remove some of these cravings from the mind. There's the Eightfold Path, which is what you need to be able to learn and understand that. That's the generalized training. And I've taught that throughout the group learning program up to this point. But now that we're in chapter 12, I'm going to teach chapter 13 next week. That's going to teach you a certain way to go in and almost surgically remove the cravings, desires, attachments. But this isn't going to be as effective if you don't already understand the Eightfold Path. So it's important, if you haven't learned that yet, to learn the Eightfold Path. And then you'll be prepared for next week when I teach chapter 13. Okay? So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest in learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. If you'd like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do that. This evening at 6:30, I'm going to be doing meditation with students over at the main hall. If you're coming for the Sunday night walking market, or if you'd like to come just for meditation, you can come, because the Sunday night walking market's right here on this main street. And at 6:30, we're going to do meditation in the main hall. And then I'm just basically going to open up to questions that students have. So you're welcome to come to that if you like. And we're going to live stream that as well. So any of you guys online, if you would like to do that, you just need to adjust for the time zone of Thailand. We're going to do this at 6:30 p.m. Thai time. And then at 9 p.m., I'm going to be here in the classroom and I'm going to do meditation with students and I'm going to teach this topic that I just taught. I teach it at 9 a.m. and I teach it at 9 p.m. too, because there's people all over the world that, depending on their time zone, they might not be able to attend the 9 a.m. class. Like in Europe right now, they're sleeping, right? So tonight at 9 p.m., those people will be awake and they'll have an opportunity to learn with me this evening. So if you'd like to learn this evening, you can do that too at 9 p.m. here at the temple. And then on Wednesday, we have meditation, and then I'll open up to questions that students have. That's going to be at 9 a.m. here, and I do it at 9 p.m. at home. And then on Friday, we have our social event where we're going to have temple movie fun night, where we're going to be watching a movie this Friday. It's a social event where we're going to be seeing a movie that's based on the cave up in Chiang Rai, where there were 13 individuals who got trapped in a cave, and there was this international effort to be able to save them. And they did a movie about this, and we're going to watch that movie this Friday at 6 p.m. This is a social event where we have popcorn. It's kind of like a little party. We kind of socialize with each other, so you're always welcome to come to that and watch this movie if you like. Every Friday, we have a social event, either game night or movie night. So whatever you choose to do, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day, and perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.